So the Thieves Guild just gave me an impossible job. I have to sabotage an island fortress, swarming with mercenaries, and clean out a vault, all without leaving a single body. The mission's code name might be loud and clear, but the only way I'm getting out of this alive is with silence and shadows. This is Goldenglow Estate. It's a honey farm that used to be the guild's sweetest moneymaker, but now it's a death trap. And this is the story of how I walked in, pulled off the perfect heist, and walked right back out without anyone even knowing I was there. 0 kills, 0 alerts. The mission seemed simple enough.
Goldenglow Estate is a bee farm. They raise the wretched little things for honey. It's owned by some smart-mouthed wood elf named Arengoth. We need you to teach him a lesson by burning down 3 of the estate's hives and clearing out the safe in the main house.
Burn 3 of the estate's beehives to send a message, and empty the owner's safe. The catch?
Do as you're told and keep your blade clean. We can't turn a profit by killing.
No bloodshed. The guild has a strict no-killing policy on this one, mostly because our client is the terrifyingly powerful
Maven black-briar.
If I get spotted, I can't just fight my way out. It's pure stealth, or I'm dead. And on an island where every single guard is a paid killer, one wrong move is all it takes. The whole place is a fortress, and the odds are definitely not in my favor. But I had a plan. Before you can pull off a job like this, you have to prepare. This isn't about having the best sword. It's about having the sharpest plan. Back in the Ragged Flagon, I went over the details. The target is Goldenglow Estate, owned by a guy named Arengoth, who decided he was done sharing his profits with the guild. To back up that decision, he hired a small army. Killing them was completely off the table. Brynjolf made it crystal clear. Maven wants Arengoth taught a lesson, not wiped off the map. If I burn more than 3 hives, I don't get paid, and I end up on Maven's bad side. So precision is everything. I was built for exactly this kind of work. Forget heavy armor and warhammers. My real power is in the shadows. My knack for staying hidden is already solid, and my guild armor is enchanted to muffle my steps and make me harder to see. My pockets are not full of soul gems. They're full of lockpicks. But the real key to this whole thing came from one conversation. I went and talked to Vex, one of the guild's veterans. Her advice is worth more than gold. She told me about a hidden sewer tunnel, an unguarded back door into the estate that lets me bypass the main bridge and all those guards entirely.
Well, there's an old sewer tunnel that dumps into the lake on the northwest side of the island. That's how I slipped in there. Should still be unguarded.
That was it. That was the angle. The mercenaries can watch the gates all day long. I'm coming up from below, like a ghost rising out of the lake. I traveled light, no heavy weapons, just a bow for creating distractions, a dagger for emergencies. I really hoped that wouldn't happen. The last thing I needed was nerve. This job takes a different kind of cold-bloodedness. Not the kind that swings an axe, but the kind that can watch a guard walk 5 feet from your hiding spot, heart hammering in your chest, and just do nothing. The kind that walks the razor's edge between light and shadow and doesn't even flinch. Goldenglow was waiting. Time to go to work. From a distance, Goldenglow Estate is actually beautiful. Sitting on an island in the middle of Lake Honrick. But the closer I got, the more that beauty turned into a threat. I could see the watchtowers, manned by mercenaries, who are paid to do nothing but look for people like me. The main bridge is a total choke point. An absolute death sentence if I tried to go in the front door. So I did a lap around the island, staying hidden in the reeds along the shore, just scouting, watching the guards. And they were good, moving with the professional discipline that told me Arengoth spent some serious coin on this security. They had every obvious angle covered. But they weren't looking down. As dusk fell and the shadows got long, I made my move. I slipped into the freezing lake, the shock of the cold, a good reminder of what was at stake. Swimming is quiet, but it's slow, and you're totally exposed. I stuck close to the rocks, my eyes glued on the location Vex had marked on my map. And there it was, on the northwest side of the island. The sewer grate. Old, rusted, completely ignored. Perfect. The grate opened and I slipped inside, pulling it shut behind me. Just like that, the world of moonlight and mercenaries was gone, and I was inside the guts of the fortress. The sewer was a stinking, dripping maze. It smelled like rot and wet earth. The only things living down here were the skeevers, their chittering echoing in the tunnels. They're a pain, but they're not the mission. I tiptoed past them, my muffled feet barely making a sound on the wet stone. I'd heard there might be traps, so I moved slow. One hand on the wall, feeling for tripwires. This is the part of the job that really tests you. The dark, the grime, the claustrophobia. It's a long way from the glorious heist the bards sing about. This is the reality of being a thief. It's not about glory. It's about wading through literal filth to get the prize. Finally, I saw a ladder leading up. This was the exit Vex told me about. The one that should pop me right inside the estate walls behind the main house. I stopped, holding my breath, listening. Nothing but the faint whistle of the wind from above. I took one last deep breath of sewer air, grabbed the rungs, and started to climb into the deadly moonlight. Climbing out of that sewer felt like being born into a world full of wolves. I was behind the main house in a narrow, deserted patch of land. Most of the guards were up front, but there were definitely still patrols out here. The air smelled of honey and danger. First up, the beehives. They were on the western side of the estate, across a little wooden bridge. This was going to be the most exposed part of the mission. Burn them, I had to be out in the open, even if it was just for a second. And fire has a nasty habit of attracting attention. I crept from one shadow to the next, using stacks of barrels and wood platforms for cover. There was a mercenary patrolling, helping to gather wood. He had a simple back and forth route. I waited for him to turn his back, and then, in that split second, I sprinted across, my heart pounding against my ribs. I made it. I was in the apiary, surrounded by the calm buzzing of bees, a weirdly peaceful sound in all this tension. I had to burn exactly 3 hives, no more, no less. I picked 3 that were close to a wooden fence that I could duck behind for my escape. This was my best shot at doing this clean. I pulled out my torch. My hand was shaking. Not from fear, but from the pure adrenaline. This was the point of no return. I touched the fire to the hive, and the first one went up. Whoosh! I moved to the next one. Another burst. That was 2. I could hear a shout from the bridge. What was that? I had to hurry and get out of here. No time to think. I lit the 3rd hive. Now I could hear boots hitting the ground running my way. The guards were coming fast. I didn't stick around to admire my work. I vaulted back over the stone wall and dove straight into the dark, cold water of the lake. The fire was my cover, a beautiful blazing distraction that had every guard staring at it, while the ghost who just started it slipped away. The sabotage was done. Now for the hard part, getting in the house. Okay, the guards are on high alert. The whole island is in chaos, and I'm about to walk right into this lion's den. If you're enjoying the story of how an impossible challenge can be broken down piece by piece, consider following my exploits. I'm pushing the limits of my craft every single week. Now let's go get that safe. The back door of the house was my way in. It was protected by a formidable lock that would stop most thieves, but this was a better way than trying to explain myself to a bunch of angry mercenaries. My hands were steady as I worked the pick, feeling the tumblers fall. Click, click. In the total silence, it sounded like a drum beat. Finally, a satisfying clunk as the bolt slid back. I was in. The inside of the house was a maze. Every corridor, every room was a potential trap, crawling with guards. Some were on patrol, their routes overlapping in a way that was designed to be deadly. Others were just sitting at tables, drinking, their eyes scanning the room. One wrong step, one little noise, and it would be all over. My strategy was simple: patience. I treated every single corner like a brand new puzzle. I'd wait in this dark alcove for what felt like forever, just watching a guard's full patrol route, learning his timing, his blind spots, the exact second he'd turn his head. A dark spot behind a wardrobe became my new home. A dining room with a big table let me cut across a hall I never would have survived otherwise. My intel said the owner, Arangoth, was on the second floor. He had the key to the safe. I could have tried to pick the safe's lock, but getting the key is the smarter play. For a true professional, optional means doing it the right way. The clean way. I found him, cowering in his bedroom. He was just this terrified guy who'd made a very powerful enemy and was now in way over his head. The mercenaries were just hired muscle. He wasn't a fighter. I could have tried to persuade or intimidate him, but if my words failed me, he'd scream for the guards. I couldn't risk it. So I became a whisper. I slipped into a corner of the room, so dark he never would have looked there. From the shadows, I just watched him. He was clutching the safe key in his hand. I waited for the perfect moment. When his eyes were locked on the door, completely lost in his own fear, I moved in, my hand a blur, and plucked the key right out of his pocket. He didn't even flinch. Arangoth just sat there, completely oblivious that a ghost had just stolen the keys to his entire kingdom. With Arangoth's key, the last piece of the puzzle was safe in the basement. I crept back down through the house, every step a risk. The path to the cellar was behind a simple gate lock near the main staircase. The basement was cold and damp. At the far end of a short hall, I saw it, the safe. But of course I wasn't alone. Another mercenary was sitting in a chair directly in front of my objective, basically using his own body as a shield. There was no way to sneak past him. Time for a distraction. I drew my bow, but I wasn't aiming to kill. I aimed at the stone wall far down the corridor behind him and let an arrow fly. It hit the stone with a sharp clack. The guard went rigid, sword out. "Who's there?" he hissed, and took off to investigate the noise. That was my opening. I rushed the stairs, heading down into the cellar. I didn't run, I glided. I moved across that floor so fast and so quietly, my feet barely touched the stone. I reached the safe, Arangoth's key already in my hand. I slid it into the lock. It turned with a soft, buttery click. The heavy door swung open. Inside was the Goldenglow bill of sale, the deed Maven black-briar wanted. I grabbed it, a bag of gold, some jewels, and shut the safe. The guard was still over by the crates. Positive he'd heard something, he had no idea the heist was already over. Completed right behind his back. I had what I came for, now I just had to vanish. Getting the bill of sale was the peak of the heist, but you're not done until you're home free. The guard in the basement was still poking around the crates, but that would not last forever. Going back up through the house felt like a stupid risk. Luckily, the guild's intel was perfect. At the back of the basement, another gate. This one led right back into the sewer system. It was the escape hatch I desperately needed. I didn't run, but I moved with purpose, retracing my steps to the sewer exit by the lake. Every splash, every skeever skittering by made me jump. But I was alone down here. This was my hidden road out of the fortress. When I finally pushed open that grate and came up onto the edge of Lake Honrick, the relief was incredible. I looked back at Goldenglow Estate. The 3 fires were still burning, sending lazy smoke into the sky. Mercenaries were still scrambling around like angry wasps, but they were hunting a phantom, a ghost who was already gone. I slipped back into the water and swam away. The bill of sale tucked safely in my pouch. Its weight, the only proof it had ever happened. Back in the Ragged Flagon, I handed the bill of sale over to Brynjolf.
Word on the street is Goldenglow's been hit. Good job, lass. Let me take a look at what you found. Arangoth sold Goldenglow? What's that idiot thinking? He has no idea the extent of Maven's fury when she's been cut out of a deal. But I'm certain he'll find out.
He looked genuinely surprised. He was probably expecting a mess, a few accidents. He never expected this. 0 kills. Every objective hit perfectly. The gold he gave me was nice, but the real reward was the respect I saw in his eyes. I hadn't just proven I was a thief. I had proven I was a master of the craft. But standing there listening to him praise the job, the mission was a success, but it felt different. I had become a better thief, no doubt about it, but I also felt a little colder, a little more calculating. I had looked at people and only seen puzzles to be solved. The thrill of the heist was real, but I had to wonder what part of myself I'd traded for it back there in the shadows. The guild had welcomed me in, and I'd proven I belonged. But the path of a ghost is a lonely one, and I knew this was just the beginning. That was my first real job for the Thieves Guild, and the stakes were only going to get higher. In fact, Maven black-briar herself has a special task for me next, and you know that's not going to be a walk in the park. If you want to see how a master thief deals with the most powerful woman in Riften, make sure to follow my continuing story, and let me know, what's the most creative or daring heist you've ever pulled off in your own adventures? I'd love to hear your stories. Until next time, stay hidden.